You in the wrong seat. Sweetheart, that's a first-class seat, and you're not exactly what we call first-class material. Captain Roger Holt sneered. Standing just inside the entrance of the ApexAir Boeing 777, his words sharp enough to silence the entire front cabin. His voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be, because every syllable was coated with contempt. The hush that followed felt colder than the cabin air, and it lingered as if the aircraft itself was holding its breath. Claire Dutton, the lead flight attendant, chimed in over the intercom with a snide lilt. "Passenger in 2A, please prepare to relocate to economy until your ticket can be verified." The sound echoed across the premium cabin like a public trial, delivered before any crime was proven. Nia Thompson, standing just past the boarding door, holding her laptop bag and a bottle of water, froze for only half a breath. Her face remained calm, but inside, something had detonated. She was a 42-year-old black woman in a cream blouse, navy slacks, and leather flats. She didn't look rich. She looked real. She didn't shout. She didn't plead. She simply raised one eyebrow as if to say, "Really?" But Captain Holt took that silence as a challenge. He stepped closer. "You think flashing a smile gets you a seat in this section? This row's reserved for priority passengers, not charity cases." Behind him, a tall white man in a tailored suit, Victor Lang, shifted impatiently. He didn't need to say a word. His eyes spoke for him. Annoyance, entitlement, expectation. He was waiting to be seated, and Holt was clearing the way. "Before we go further, tell me, where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country below. Because what's about to happen in the next 9 minutes inside this cabin? It's not just a story about an airline. It's a lesson on power, bias, and what happens when the wrong woman is underestimated by the wrong crew on the wrong day. If this story moves you, hit like, and don't forget to subscribe for more true stories that demand to be heard. Nia's seat, 2A, was clearly printed on her ticket, but Claire leaned over with exaggerated concern. "Ma'am, could you please step into the galley? We need to confirm your reservation." The word confirm felt like code. Nia simply handed her the boarding pass. Claire barely glanced at it before saying, "This looks altered." Then, turning to another attendant, she muttered, "Check economy. She probably just wandered in." Emma Riley, a white passenger across the aisle, raised her phone and began filming. She whispered to the man beside her, Liam Foster. "This feels off." Liam nodded and quietly started recording as well. Nia said nothing, just opened her wallet, pulled out her ApexAir Platinum ID card, and held it steady in her hand. Claire smirked. "Nice print job. You can't just make up credentials. If you don't cooperate, we'll have to delay the flight," Captain Holt added. "This jet doesn't leave with confusion in the cabin, especially not over this sort of disruption." That's when Victor, still standing, still silent, decided to drop the mask. "She doesn't look like she belongs in first class," he said plainly, "like stating the weather, just loud enough, just enough venom, just enough racism wrapped in restraint." Several passengers looked up, no one laughed, but no one spoke. Nia blinked slowly. That was the moment everything turned. Because 20 years ago, when she was 22, Nia Thompson had boarded a flight in jeans and a hoodie. She'd just graduated from Howard, had saved for months to afford the ticket. But the flight crew didn't believe she belonged in business class. They asked her, repeatedly, if she was lost, if she needed help finding her section. That humiliation? It lit a fire. That fire built a company. And that company became ApexAir. Now, here she stood, in her own jet, being humiliated by men who unknowingly worked for her. Emma's voice cut through the awkward silence. This is going on Reddit. Right now. Discrimination on ApexAir flight. Liam leaned toward her. Tag me. This is disgusting. Claire's head snapped toward them, lips tightening. You two need to put your phones away or face removal. Emma didn't flinch. Then remove me. But I'm not stopping. Maya Brooks, the youngest flight attendant on the crew, stepped forward. Her voice trembled slightly, but her words didn't. Her ticket is valid. I checked it myself when she boarded. Holt turned on her with a look that could kill. You checked wrong. Maya stood her ground. I didn't. Nia took a deep breath and finally spoke. Roger Holt, you're making a mistake. Claire crossed her arms. And what? Exactly. Do you think gives you the right to be here? Nia raised the platinum ID card again, calmly, then flipped it over. On the back, in embossed lettering, Nia Thompson, Chief Executive Officer, ApexAir Global Holdings. Claire snatched it, tossed it onto a nearby seat like trash. Anyone can fake that. Liam stepped forward and picked up the card. He read it aloud, slowly. Passengers turned, whispers rippled. One woman gasped. A man near 1D muttered, Wait, did she say CEO? Emma pointed her phone back toward Claire. You messed up. Nia stood still, her voice quiet but unmistakable. You're ruining ApexAir, Claire barked. Ma'am, sit down or I'll call security. Nia didn't move. She pulled out her phone. Lila, she said softly. Activate internal system protocol. Begin documentation. We're escalating. On the other end of that call, Lila Carter, her executive assistant, already knew. It's set, she replied. Do you want me to prep the file? No, Nia answered, still staring at Claire. I'll handle this one myself. Captain Holt, still holding the cabin mic in one hand, scoffed. Ma'am, let me be clear. We don't fly charity missions here. This is a commercial airline. You can't expect to buy respect with attitude. Nia narrowed her eyes. No, but I do expect you to lose your job with that mouth. Victor snorted. This is why you people always think everything's about race. Maya turned to him sharply. And yet here you are, proving her point. Emma looked into her phone's camera and whispered, If you've ever faced this kind of treatment, you already know. And if you haven't, watch what happens next. Claire moved toward the intercom again. Ladies and gentlemen, please excuse the delay. We are resolving a ticketing issue with a passenger who may not belong in this section. Maya yanked the mic away before she could finish. Stop lying! The cabin was no longer quiet. Tension had become oxygen, and the oxygen was catching fire. Nia, unmoved, straightened her shoulders. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't crying. She was calculating. You've got 8 minutes left to fix this, she said coldly, or I'll fix it myself. Passengers began murmuring louder. Some stood. Others whispered into phones. Maya, now clearly on Nia's side, took a visible step toward her. Victor scoffed again, shaking his head as if the whole thing was beneath him, but nothing was beneath Nia. She wasn't beneath this seat. She wasn't beneath this moment. She wasn't beneath them. Because she didn't come to be quiet. She came to reclaim her plane. And in exactly 9 minutes, she would. Mark Grayson leaned against the bulkhead like he had nothing to prove. Arms crossed, eyes scanning Nia with a cool, detached authority. Your complaint isn't a priority right now, he said flatly, not even bothering to look her in the eye. We've got real passengers waiting. The word real stung more than the tone. Nia took one step forward. She wasn't raising her voice, but something in her energy changed. No longer still, no longer patient. Ethan Walsh, the youngest flight attendant on the team, stepped toward her with a forced, mechanical smile and said, I'll take this. then grabbed her laptop bag straight out of her hands. "Excuse me?" Nia snapped. Startled, but Ethan didn't stop. He turned on his heel, walked to the crew storage bin behind the curtain, and tossed the bag in without care. "No loose bags in first class," he mumbled, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We have standards to maintain." Claire, watching from the service galley, smirked. "She's no VIP, doesn't matter what badge she flashes." Maya, still standing near the aisle, spoke up. "Her ticket is valid. She's cleared for 2A. Claire's expression turned icy. "You're not in charge. Maya, stay in your lane." Victor, still upright and smug, muttered, "She's out of place, and now she's creating a scene." Typical. A few passengers nodded without thinking. Microaggressions don't always shout. They whisper, and this one whispered loud enough to poison the air. Nia inhaled slowly, trying to push back the storm building in her chest, but the flash of memory hit her like turbulence. She was 12 again, flying alone to visit her aunt in Chicago. Her mother had dressed her in a sunflower yellow dress. It was supposed to make her feel confident, grown up. But the flight attendant on that trip didn't smile when Nia boarded. She looked her up and down and said, "Honey, are you sure you're in the right place?" A question wrapped in concern, but soaked in doubt. They made her sit near the back. The dress didn't feel bright after that. That moment carved itself into her memory. And now, this moment was waking it up. Back in the cabin, Lila's voice came through softly on the phone, still in Nia's hand. "Everything's active," she said. "We're logging every incident in the internal system. Do you want me to notify corporate now?" Nia replied, eyes locked on Ethan. "Not yet. Let them finish showing who they really are." Mark stepped in again. "Look, we don't have time to entertain drama. If you want to file a report, go online like everyone else." He gestured toward the gate door. "Or feel free to exit." The implication was sharp. Leave, or be quiet. Maya took one step closer. "She's the only one here not creating drama. You're humiliating her for being in the seat she paid for, and your reactions are proving everything she said." Ethan turned, looking uneasy now. "We're just following protocol." Nia's voice came low but firm. "Give me my bag back." Ethan didn't move. Claire rolled her eyes and turned her back. "There's no winning with people like this," she muttered under her breath. But Emma Riley heard it. "Say that louder for the camera, Claire," she said. Raising her phone again, Liam Foster posted to Facebook mid-sentence. "Passenger of color being harassed on ApexAir. Laptop confiscated. Crew mocking her. Not okay." Several passengers saw the screen and murmured. One leaned toward another and whispered, "What if she really is someone important?" The tension in the cabin had grown thick enough to cut. Nia stepped toward Ethan again, extending her hand. "Return my property." Ethan looked to Mark for guidance. Mark shrugged. "You took it. You deal with it." And in that moment, something shifted in Ethan's eyes. Not regret, but hesitation. He hadn't expected to be left alone in this. Nia didn't flinch. "You've got one chance to do the right thing." Before Ethan could speak, Maya moved beside Nia. "If you're not returning the bag, I will," Claire cut in, voice tight with anger. "Don't you dare disobey a direct order." Maya didn't blink. "Your order was biased and out of line." Passengers behind them began to clap quietly. Just a few, but enough to be noticed. Mark snapped. "What is this? A protest now?" Liam shouted from his seat. "Yes, because it's wrong. And now it's on Facebook." Ethan took a small step back, shaken by the shift. His voice trembled. "I was told to." Nia interrupted. "You knew what you were doing. You just thought I couldn't fight back." Then came the twist, small, but powerful. Maya turned to Nia, her voice calm and even. "Claire has a history of this," she said. 2 months ago, she rerouted a black passenger to economy after claiming their barcode didn't scan. It did. I saw it. She told me to keep quiet. Nia looked around the cabin. The silence was no longer passive. It was watchful. Eyes were locked in. "Is that true?" someone asked from the middle row. Claire's silence confirmed everything. Nia stepped toward her. "Your days of hiding behind the intercom are over." Claire's voice cracked. "You don't get to threaten crew." Emma stood. "She doesn't need to threaten anyone. She just needs to exist for y'all to panic." Maya nodded toward the passengers. "They've seen enough," Liam added. "And we're not deleting anything." A ripple of voices confirmed it. The balance of power had shifted. "Ask yourself," Nia said, speaking to the whole front cabin now. "What would you do if this happened to your mother, your daughter, your friend?" No one answered, but they all thought it. Claire turned and walked briskly toward the cockpit door. Mark followed, eyes darting. Then came the final words of the moment. Nia turned toward the camera and said plainly, "This isn't just a seat. This is a line, and they just crossed it." And with that, the aisle became a stage, and everyone in it, every crew member, every passenger, every camera, was now a witness. Now it's your turn. What would you say if you were standing in Nia's shoes? What would you say to Claire? Would you speak up or stay silent? Because bias doesn't need permission to thrive. It only needs your silence. And Nia Thompson? She was done being silent. "Security. This is Captain Holt," Roger said into the cabin phone, his voice tight with indignation. "I've got a disruptive passenger in 2A refusing to comply. We need immediate removal." The words echoed down the first-class aisle, triggering an immediate wave of tension. Some passengers gasped audibly, others turned to each other, whispering. But Nia? She didn't even blink. She just folded her arms, standing tall in the same seat she had legally and rightfully boarded. Claire, emboldened by Roger's escalation, grabbed the intercom again and snapped, "Passengers, please be advised, we are experiencing a delay due to a false charity-related disturbance." Her voice laced the lie with venom. "The individual in 2A is not who she claims to be." The silence that followed was deafening. Nia's jaw clenched as Ethan, standing beside the curtain, yanked her passport from the bin where he had thrown her bag earlier and hurled it at her feet like it was worthless paper. "There's your ID," he said. "Now go back to where you belong." Victor chuckled, not loudly, but enough. "She doesn't fit here anyway," he mumbled, and that was the final match to the powder keg. Emma stood so quickly her seat back rattled. "Twist is getting this in real time. I just uploaded the clip." Her voice cut through the air like a blade. "This is targeted harassment." Liam followed suit, standing beside her. "This is racism, and we're not letting it slide." Passengers nearby began murmuring, then raising their voices. Some shouted at Claire, some at Roger, others just stood with wide eyes, filming. Claire's smirk began to fade. "Turn those phones off," she snapped. "You're not allowed to record on board." But no one listened. The line between control and collapse had already shattered, at the far end of the cabin. Maya stood firm, now next to Nia, her voice calm but fierce. "I won't be part of this anymore," she said. "What you're doing, it's wrong, and we all know it." Roger emerged from the cockpit, face red, fury trembling in his jaw. "This isn't your decision to make. Maya," he barked. "You're a junior flight attendant." Maya turned to face him, unfazed. "And she's our CEO." That line didn't land right away. It was like a sound wave that took a full second to ripple through the air. Some passengers blinked, others froze. Roger stumbled. "What?" he asked. voice quieter now. "What did you just say?" Before anyone could answer, a tall figure entered the cabin. Security Officer Jamal Carter, clean-cut, professional, serious. Roger pointed immediately. "That's her. 2A. Remove her. She's not cooperating." Jamal didn't move. Instead, he looked at Nia, then at Maya, then at Claire, then back at Nia, and he paused. Nia reached down slowly, picked up her passport off the carpet, and turned it over, holding it just long enough for Jamal to read the embossed card beside it. "I'm Nia Thompson," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "I own ApexAir, 100%. She turned to the camera Emma still held. "And in about 6 minutes. This crew won't be working here anymore." Claire paled. Roger's eyes narrowed. "This isn't real," he said. "This is some kind of stunt." Emma raised her phone higher. "Stunt? This is live, and your voice is already trending," Liam added. "Passengers are backing her. You've lost this battle before it even hit the runway." Jamal spoke for the first time. "Captain Holt, I was called to resolve a safety issue, not to assist in a personal vendetta." He turned to Claire. "The passenger in 2A holds verified documentation, and multiple eyewitnesses confirm staff misconduct. I will not remove her." Nia looked directly at Roger. "This wasn't just bias. This was calculated humiliation, and it stops now." Meanwhile, passengers behind first class were standing. Several had migrated toward the front to see what was happening. One woman called out, "I've flown ApexAir for 10 years and I've never seen this level of abuse." Another man added, "She didn't raise her voice once, and you all treated her like a criminal." Victor, still seated, waved a dismissive hand. "She's disrupting the flight. That's all I care about." Jamal turned his attention to him. "Sir, you'll be addressed separately. Stay in your seat." Victor scowled, but obeyed. Nia's phone buzzed softly. She looked down. Lila had sent a single message, "Ready when you are." She didn't respond yet. Instead, she raised her gaze to the passengers who were filming, standing, speaking out. "This is the line," she said. "Right here. This is what it looks like. Not hashtags, not lawsuits, just truth, in real time, in front of you, now." Claire looked like she was trying to disappear. Ethan had stepped back behind the galley curtain. Even Mark, who had spent the entire morning dismissing her, suddenly seemed to shrink into his uniform. But Nia? She took one step forward, and the cabin practically inhaled with her. Her voice remained even. "I've given you every chance. You tore my credibility apart. You mocked my mission. You confiscated my property. You questioned my humanity. And now, the world is watching. But I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to fix what you broke." Jamal nodded. "Ms. Thompson, I'm here to support your call." Emma's phone buzzed next. She looked at the screen and whispered to Liam. "Reddit's blowing up. There's already a thread with over 200 comments." Nia turned back toward Roger. "You said I didn't belong, that I wasn't first-class material." She paused. "Well, neither are you." Roger opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Maya finally broke the stillness with a breathy laugh, filled with disbelief and pride. "I told you. She's not just a passenger." The cabin wasn't quiet anymore. It wasn't chaotic either. It was something else, something more powerful. It was united. The people inside it weren't just passengers. They had become witnesses, advocates, a chorus. And it wasn't just about Nia anymore. It was about every woman, every traveler, every person who had ever been told they didn't belong because they didn't look the part. And in that moment, with the clock ticking down to the 4th minute of that 9-minute window, Nia Thompson owned more than just the airline. She owned the truth, and she was about to use it. "Drag her out now," Roger barked, his voice cracking under pressure as the cabin buzzed with resistance. He pointed at Nia like she was a threat, not the owner of the jet they were standing in. "Ethan, get her off this plane." Ethan hesitated, eyes darting from Roger to the passengers who were now visibly outraged. But then he moved, fast, sharp, unthinking. He stormed toward Nia, arm outstretched, and shoved her shoulder hard enough that she stumbled sideways into the aisle armrest. A collective gasp spread like wildfire through the cabin. Emma dropped her phone for half a second. Instinctively stepping forward, Liam shouted, "Don't touch her!" A middle-aged woman in seat 3A stood abruptly and stepped in front of Nia, shielding her. "You're not laying another finger on her," she said. 2 more passengers stood beside her, then 3, then 7, within seconds. The aisle transformed into a barrier, passengers shoulder to shoulder, backs straight, eyes locked on the crew. They weren't just witnesses anymore. They were defenders. Jamal, still present and watching everything unfold, took a deliberate step forward but paused as the barrier formed, stunned by how fast this group of strangers had become a wall. Ethan froze. For the first time, he looked unsure, not just of the situation, but of himself. Claire's voice rang out, shaky but still sharp. "You're obstructing a flight crew. That's a federal offense." But no one moved. Not one person stepped aside. Instead, Liam raised his phone again. "The only federal offense here is what you just did to her," Emma echoed. "It's all on video. Every second." Nia, standing now behind the wall of passengers, straightened her blouse slowly and looked Ethan directly in the eyes. "That shove? That's the last thing you'll ever do in this uniform?" Her voice didn't tremble. It didn't yell. It just landed, with the force of absolute truth, on the phone still clutched in her hand. Lila's voice returned. "Nia, the corporate board is aware. They've authorized full internal enforcement. You want to proceed?" Nia nodded once. "Begin the escalation file," Lila replied calmly. "Already live." As Jamal stepped between Ethan and the wall of passengers, his tone shifted from neutral to firm. "This is done. Everyone needs to back off and let the CEO speak." Roger, visibly sweating now, stepped forward. "You're just going to stand there while she holds up a flight? This is an abuse of power." Jamal turned toward him. "No, Captain, this is a correction of power." At that moment, a woman in the 4th row, her voice trembling, spoke up. "She's not the one delaying us. You are." And another, from row 5, added, "I've watched you talk down to her since she boarded. If this is how you treat your own boss, what chance do the rest of us have?" Claire scoffed. "This has nothing to do with race or position. She was aggressive." Emma raised her voice. "You mean assertive? That's the word you're looking for. Don't twist it." Claire opened her mouth again, but Maya beat her to it. "Enough. You've ignored complaints. You've lied to passengers. You've smeared someone trying to help kids in Kenya. This is who you are. And it's time everyone sees it." Nia's eyes flicked toward the curtain separating first class from the galley, where Ethan had disappeared. "Where is my bag?" she asked. Claire flinched. "It was put away." Jamal stepped toward the storage compartment and retrieved the laptop bag himself, handing it to Nia without a word. The moment it touched her hands, it felt symbolic. Control, restored, voice, returned, identity, reclaimed. Then came the twist, more potent than any shout. From behind the curtain, a whisper of conversation escaped. "We can't keep hiding this," a voice said. Ethan's. "They're going to find the reports," another replied, quieter, tense. "She'll bury us." Claire's eyes widened, but not fast enough. Liam had moved closer and heard enough. "What reports?" he asked loudly. "What are they hiding?" The cabin went still again. Nia looked to Maya. "What are they talking about?" Maya's face darkened. Complaints, passenger reports about biased treatment, discarded, suppressed. I only found out after I was transferred. Emma lowered her phone and said softly, "Claire, you buried bias reports?" Claire didn't answer. The silence was louder than a scream. Nia stepped forward, walking slowly into the aisle cleared by the passengers who now formed a semicircle around her. "That's why it keeps happening," she said quietly. "Not because it's just a few bad apples, but because the rot gets protected," Claire whispered. "It wasn't just me." Her voice was small. Roger knew. So did Ethan. We were told to de-escalate uncomfortable passenger issues and just file it away. Roger turned to her, stunned. "You're throwing me under the plane now?" Claire shook her head. "You threw yourself." Lila's voice came through the phone one last time. "Nia, corporate recommends you take direct action. The documentation is locked, time-stamped, and ready for signature." Nia breathed in, long and slow. "Then I'll do it." She raised her head, voice ringing through the cabin. "Passengers, thank you for your courage, for your voices, for your patience. You've just saved more than a flight. You've exposed a culture that's been hiding in plain sight." Maya stepped beside her, and the passengers broke into spontaneous applause, not loud, not theatrical, just steady, sincere, and full of quiet gratitude. One woman clapped while wiping away a tear. A man whispered, "Thank God someone finally stood up." Victor, who had been silent through the entire uprising, leaned forward in his seat. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "You're not a hero. You're just overreacting." Nia turned to him without even blinking. "No, I'm just the one holding the mirror." And in that reflection, Roger, Claire, and Ethan had finally seen themselves. But Nia? She saw something else entirely. She saw a new beginning, and the reckoning wasn't coming later. It had already begun. Nia took one slow, deliberate step into the center of the aisle, her laptop bag now clutched in one hand, the other still holding her phone as passengers watched with wide eyes. Some still filming, others just stunned into silence. Her blouse, slightly wrinkled from the shove, was the only thing out of place, because her resolve, her posture, her voice, her presence, unshakable. "My name is Nia Thompson," she said, her voice cool and resonant, cutting through the tension like a scalpel. "I am the Chief Executive Officer of ApexAir Global Holdings. I am the sole owner of this airline, and as of right now, I am terminating the employment of 4 people on this flight." Gasps erupted through the first-class cabin like pressure popping loose from a sealed valve. Claire froze mid-step near the service galley. Roger, still standing near the cockpit, went pale. Mark, emerging behind him, looked confused for only a second before dread took over. And Ethan, who had retreated into the shadows of the galley, peeked around the corner like a child caught stealing candy. Nia's eyes moved slowly, purposefully, from one face to the next. Captain Roger Holt, First Officer Mark Grayson, Lead Flight Attendant Claire Dutton. Flight Attendant Ethan Walsh, you are relieved of duty, effective immediately. Claire laughed, just once, the sound sharp and hollow. "You can't do that." Nia turned her head slightly. "I already did." Jamal, standing between Nia and the stunned crew, stepped forward with a subtle nod. "Corporate validation was confirmed 10 minutes ago. All 4 names are on the directive." Lila's voice came through Nia's phone on speaker now, clear for everyone to hear. "This is Lila Carter, Executive Liaison for ApexAir, by order of the CEO. The above-listed personnel are hereby dismissed. HR protocols begin the moment the aircraft doors reopen. Their credentials are revoked. Flight access terminated." Ethan let out a soft breath like he'd been punched. Roger took a shaky step forward. "You're making a mistake. We didn't know who you were." Nia didn't hesitate. "That's exactly the problem. You didn't need to know my name to treat me with dignity. But you saw a black woman in first class and made assumptions. You saw confidence and called it defiance. You saw proof and still called it fake. That wasn't ignorance. That was bias." A hush fell again, heavier than before. Claire stumbled backward slightly, face flushing red. "This wasn't personal." Nia turned slowly to her. "You humiliated me over the intercom, mocked my charity, tossed my credentials like trash, told others I was causing delays while your hands were the ones throwing roadblocks. This was personal the moment you opened your mouth." Behind Nia, Maya stepped forward, standing taller than she had all flight. "She's right. And I'm not staying silent anymore." Claire looked at her like she'd been betrayed. "You're siding with her?" Maya didn't blink. "No, I'm siding with the truth." Emma lowered her phone, visibly shaken but proud. "You exposed them, and you didn't even need to raise your voice." Liam nodded. "It's already on twist. The story's breaking faster than they can cover it." But Nia shook her head gently. "Let this stay here. This doesn't need to be a media circus. We fix it from the inside." Then the twist landed. Unexpected, personal, and damning. Claire stepped back toward Ethan, her voice a whisper at first. "I didn't delete those reports alone." Ethan didn't respond. Claire's voice rose, desperation creeping in. "Tell her. Tell them what we were told to do." Roger looked up sharply. "Don't you drag me into this." But Ethan, nervous, guilt-ridden, stepped forward. "There were meetings, off the record. Claire told us not to escalate complaints that seemed emotionally reactive." His voice cracked at the last part. "We were told to document them vaguely, bury anything with race. Mark backed it, so did Roger." Now it was Roger's turn to lose color. "That's not true." Ethan turned on him, voice finally shaking free. "It is. You said it. You said complaints about microaggressions were bad for company optics," Claire added bitterly. "We were told ApexAir was not the place for social crusades." Nia raised her hand, silencing the chorus of defenses. "And how many passengers paid the price for your silence? How many were insulted, ignored, dismissed, because you decided their discomfort wasn't convenient for your metrics?" No one answered. Lila's voice returned. "Nia, would you like me to proceed with Apex equity enforcement?" Nia exhaled slowly. "Yes. Begin the rollout. Flag every suppressed complaint from the last 2 years. Cross-check against the internal bias audit. Notify HR and onboard ethics." Lila replied. "Confirmed. The system is live." Maya stared at Nia like she was seeing her for the first time. "You're not just cleaning house. You're changing it." Nia smiled faintly. "One crew at a time." Then, she turned toward Victor, still seated, arms folded, scowl permanent. "And Victor Lang," she said, "you're banned from all ApexAir flights. Permanently." His jaw dropped. "What? For what?" Nia didn't flinch. "For attempting to use your privilege as a boarding pass, for encouraging public humiliation, for thinking this cabin, and the people in it, existed to serve you." Victor's face twisted with disbelief. "You'll hear from my lawyers." "So will I," Nia replied, "and so will my legal team. But unlike you, mine wins." Passengers erupted, not into wild cheering, but applause layered with respect, gratitude, awe. Some clapped with wide eyes, others simply nodded. One man whispered, "She did what we all wish we could do." Emma turned to Liam and said, "This plane just became a case study in leadership." Maya looked at Nia again. "What now?" Nia took one last look at the cabin, the space that had tried to reject her, the team that had tried to silence her, the passengers who chose to stand. "Now," she said, "we fly without them." And with that, the cabin shifted, not just in mood, not just in power, but in purpose. The reckoning had arrived, and it had a name. The cabin door remained open, but no one was thinking about takeoff anymore. Not the passengers, not the crew, and certainly not Nia. She stood at the front of the first-class cabin, a space that had tried to reject her presence just minutes ago, now transformed into the starting point of something far bigger. "Effective immediately," she began, her tone calm and even but carrying the weight of a verdict. "ApexAir is launching the Apex Equity Program, our commitment to accountability, transparency, and respect across every route, every gate, every crew." Passengers leaned forward, some still holding their phones, others setting them down, realizing this wasn't a moment to record, it was a moment to witness. "The program includes mandatory diversity and empathy training for all flight staff," Nia continued. "Routine audits of passenger complaint logs, a whistleblower shield for any employee who reports internal bias, and a human-led internal review committee with real power to act." She paused, letting the words settle. "Because it's not just about this flight. It's about all the flights that came before it, the ones no one saw, the ones no one believed." From her seat at the front, Maya looked stunned. Not because she didn't think Nia would take action, but because she didn't expect to be part of it. "Maya Brooks," Nia said, turning to her. "You stood for the truth when it wasn't easy. You defended a passenger you didn't know, in front of colleagues who outranked you. That's what leadership looks like." Maya's eyes widened. "Ma'am, Nia smiled gently. "You're now lead flight attendant of this aircraft and formally promoted to senior crew, if you accept." The applause that followed wasn't explosive. It was warm, earned, human. The kind that comes when people feel like something good just happened, and they got to see it in person. Maya covered her mouth, blinking back sudden tears, then nodded. "I accept." Nia turned to Jamal, the security officer who had stood neutral when called but chose integrity when it mattered. "And Officer Carter, thank you for stepping back and choosing fairness. You weren't just a guard, you were a gauge." Jamal gave a respectful nod. Wasn't hard to recognize the right side of this one. Nia's phone buzzed again. Lila's voice came through, low but steady. "We've flagged and frozen over 60 past reports. Claire's name is tied to more than 25, and there's a new update." Nia stepped toward the galley, out of earshot from most passengers, and listened. "What is it?" Lila hesitated for a beat. "There was an internal staff group chat, unsanctioned, where Claire and Ethan discussed ways to contain escalation, a code word for deleting or redirecting bias complaints to inactive folders. But there's more. They were coached." Nia's brow furrowed. "Coached? By who?" Lila's answer came slow, deliberate. "A former base manager at LAX. They referred to him by initials. B.W. He ran quarterly training, off the record." Nia's breath caught, but she didn't let it show. "Did he still work here?" "No," Lila said. "He retired last year. But the policy culture he instilled, still active in parts of our crew leadership?" Nia nodded. "Then we're not just dealing with bad actors. We're dealing with buried roots." She returned to the center of the aisle and raised her voice just enough for everyone to hear. "Some of what happened here today wasn't just bias. It was planned negligence. There was a system in place to protect employees from accountability, and it ends today." A few passengers muttered in disbelief. Ethan, now seated at the back of the cabin near the bulkhead, looked ashen. Nia turned to him. "Anything you want to say before I report you to the ethics board?" Ethan stood slowly, The bravado he'd once worn now gone entirely. "I knew what we were doing was wrong," he admitted, voice cracking. "But Claire said the company would never back passengers over crew. She said you were too high up to care. I didn't believe her. Not until today." Nia tilted her head. "You were right not to believe her. But you still did nothing." Ethan nodded miserably. "I know." His voice dropped. "I'm sorry." But it was too late for sorry. Passengers began whispering again, not in fear, but in realization, that this wasn't just about one flight or one woman. It was about an airline, an industry, and a culture that had quietly allowed dignity to be optional. Not anymore. Nia turned to the crowd. "For anyone who experienced harm during this flight, verbal, emotional, or psychological, I'm offering a full refund and a complimentary upgrade for your next travel with ApexAir. It doesn't erase what happened, but it acknowledges it." A woman near the back raised her hand. "And what happens next?" Nia answered without pause. "Next, we review every active crew file. We retrain from the top down. We speak to people, not around them. And we make sure that never again does a black woman in first class get mistaken for a threat." The cabin erupted again, not with chaos, but with affirmation. Applause rose, steady and strong. Some passengers stood to join it. Others remained seated, their heads nodding slowly, their eyes full. Lila's voice returned one last time. "The Apex Equity Program page just went live. Internal emails are being delivered to all regional managers." Nia smiled softly. "Then it's already begun." She turned back to Maya. "I'll be stepping off before takeoff. You have the cabin." Maya nodded with both pride and nerves. "I'll keep it in good hands." Nia reached out, placed a hand on her shoulder. "I know you will." As Nia turned toward the jet bridge, a young girl near row 5 tugged on her mother's sleeve and whispered something. The mother leaned forward and called softly, "Ms. Thompson?" Nia stopped, turning back. "Yes?" The girl peeked from behind her mother's arm. "Are you going to make sure all the planes are safe now?" Nia smiled gently, her voice soft but certain. "Yes, sweetheart. That's the plan." And with that, she stepped off the aircraft, not in silence, not in shame, but in triumph. Behind her, the cabin wasn't just lighter, it was changed. 6 months later, Gate D12 at Miami International no longer bore the same quiet dread it once held for Nia Thompson. The scent of roasted espresso from the renovated lounge drifted down the terminal. The signage had changed. The uniforms had changed. But most importantly, so had the culture. ApexAir now operated under the Apex Equity Program in full force, bias reporting kiosks at every hub, quarterly empathy drills, anonymous employee input channels, and real-time passenger experience audits. The story from that flight, once just a cabin-contained upheaval, had rippled through every layer of the airline, quietly, intentionally, not for PR, not for applause, but because Nia made sure the shame stayed internal while the solutions went systemic. Claire, Roger, Mark, and Ethan had all been dismissed with cause, later facing FAA scrutiny for ethical misconduct. Their names, redacted in internal training but not forgotten, now served as a quiet warning throughout crew leadership circles. What had happened that day wasn't just an embarrassment, it was a mirror, one the entire industry had no choice but to stare into. Nia had refused interviews, declined TV spots, ignored book deals. Her only public statement was a single sentence issued to ApexAir staff and shareholders. "We won't build a future on silence." Inside the new corporate office in Atlanta, a plaque hung outside the Apex Equity Training Center. It read, "Courage doesn't shout, it stands." And below it, in small engraved font, inspired by Maya Brooks, lead flight attendant. Maya had since become not just a leader, but a symbol across ApexAir. Her promotion stuck. Her credibility multiplied. She'd gone from being ignored in briefings to helping write new onboarding procedures. In her interviews with trainees, she told the truth. Not polished, not filtered, but real. About the day Claire tried to erase a CEO. About the moment silence ended and change began. And every time she told it, someone in the room would say, "That couldn't happen again." And Maya would always reply, "It could, unless you speak." Back at gate D12, the very flight Nia had been on was preparing to board. This time, bound for Nairobi again. No drama, no delays, no doubt. As passengers settled into their seats, a woman approached the gate agent and quietly requested assistance for her elderly mother, who was nervous about flying. The agent responded not just with courtesy, but with eye contact, patience, and care. Across the terminal, a man who didn't look the part was upgraded without question after his name came up on the platinum list and seated in 2A. Yes, that same 2A. A black teenager dressed in a hoodie, headphones draped around her neck, tapped nervously on the armrest until a flight attendant walked by and smiled. "You good, sweetheart?" the attendant asked. "Yeah," the girl replied. "First time flying up here?" The attendant grinned. "Belong here just the same." Meanwhile, in Nia's downtown Atlanta office, she was reviewing a stack of employee submissions from the anonymous feedback portal when her assistant stepped in. "There's a letter you should see, handwritten, no return address." Nia raised an eyebrow, took the envelope, and opened it carefully. The handwriting was shaky, the ink slightly smudged, but the words were clear. "You don't know me, but I used to be a regional crew manager. Years ago. I left when I realized I had protected people like Roger. I told myself I was doing my job, but I wasn't. I was hiding. What you did on that flight, that changed everything. For me, for others. We used to pass around a phrase. Keep it clean for the cabin. Bury the bias in the bin. We thought it was clever. Now it just makes me sick. Thank you for not walking off that plane quietly. Thank you for staying." Nia folded the letter gently. No bitterness in her expression, just weight. A kind of settled ache only truth can bring. Across ApexAir's internal servers, the Apex Equity dashboard showed a decline in unresolved bias reports by over 70%. Resolved cases rose, passenger satisfaction among black and brown travelers, highest in company history, but Nia didn't measure the success by numbers. She measured it by absence. The absence of humiliation, the absence of fear, the absence of one voice being silenced while others looked away. That was her metric. That was her mission. The final twist came during a private meeting 3 weeks after the Nairobi flight resumed. A retired ApexAir executive, once silent during board meetings, now facing potential litigation, confessed in writing that Roger had flagged Nia's name before the flight even began. He had known who she was. He just didn't think she would fight back. He believed she'd sit down, take it. And if she didn't? He thought no one would believe her. That confession, buried in legal archives, never made headlines, but it made something else. Resolve. Because it proved that the battle Nia fought that day wasn't spontaneous. It was systemic, and she had beaten it from the inside. Before stepping out that day, Nia looked at the weathered photo frame on her desk. Inside, it was a picture of her at 12, wearing a bright yellow dress on her first flight, the one where she was asked, "Are you sure you're in the right seat?" She had never forgotten it. And now, because of everything she had done, thousands of others wouldn't have to live it. So to the passengers who stood, to the crew who spoke up, to the girls who will board planes dressed however they please, and to the woman who once had her seat challenged but never her worth. The sky was no longer the limit. It was just the beginning. If this story moves you, hit like, and don't forget to subscribe for more true stories that demand to be heard.